Continuing with Meet the Candidates, it's my pleasure to say hi to a friend of mine and this community for quite a while, Vicki Wolber.
Hi, Tom.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
We're trying to give the citizens an opportunity, get to know the face and the person a little better, and get some exposure to the people that might not see you over the course of time. So before we get started, tell them a little bit about you personally before we get going here.
Sure. I'm 54 years old. Have no problem saying that.
Could have fooled me.
Well,
That's good.
Thank you. I was born and raised in Detroit, and then moved to Royal Oak for a little bit of time, and then really for the bulk of my life, I've been in Macomb County. I was in Roseville for about 18 years, Fraser for a little bit, and now I make my home in Clinton Township. I've been here for 6 years. I'm married. I have a daughter, and life is good right now. I'm at a really good place. I'm active. I like to golf. I'm active in my church. So everything is going really, really well.
How's the golf game?
Golf, actually, that's improving quite a bit. Last night we had golf, and someone joked about my handicap. He goes, 18 handicap, really? So I did good.
Good sandbagger. Okay, that's good.
I'm improving.
Then you're a good golfer, if you know 18. So it's funny to me that you retired.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the background. I know you work for the county with Mark Hackel.
Sure. Yes. I can start there. I can go further back. I have 35 years of public service. I started with the city of Fraser, and I was there for 12 years. And then, yes, I ended my career with Mark and the county exec's office. And within that time frame, I've done a lot of different work and worked in a lot of different departments. I worked my way up. Technically, at the city of Fraser, it was supposed to be a part-time summer job after high school, and I lasted 12 years. So within that, I've done everything from, how to pay water bills. I worked in our finance department, cutting checks. I passed out recycling bins when recycling first started.
Right.
And really that's where, too, I really got into the emergency management field that I did for the most of my time at the county. But Fraser had an emergency management program, so I was their director there for a time being. And I was also deputy city clerk for Fraser. And then at the county, I got hired in for emergency management. Did that basically for 18 years. Mm-hmm. And then the last 5 in my career were within the county exec's office. Mark asked me to be a deputy county executive. And I really think, my paths and how you work, right, from day to day, you're working with the people, and then, as you move up, you take on more responsibility, more management, more of the policy, more of the vision. So I think it's really well-rounded. And I have to say, with the emergency management side of it, one of the things I liked so much is I needed to know how all the other departments worked. I needed to know people in the community.
What exactly does emergency management, for those that are a little less familiar with it, what does that entail?
Sure. So emergency management is really the part of government that handles if emergencies or disasters happen. So we really focus on the prevention side. You obviously have your response side once something happens. And then you have your mitigation as well, and your preparedness too. So you try to tie all that in. Sometimes people say nothing ever happens. So that's when we're really trying to do our preparedness and our prevention. Do we have plans in place as a government entity of what we're going to do? Do we have our response plans? We work with responders, schools, businesses. Are you going to be able to take care of yourself if something happens? And then how are we going to respond as a government entity where the majority of that responsibility lies, correct?
In the township, we recently had the episode over by 15 Mile Road.
Yes.
There was discussion on all sides. All of us, it was a shock, like anything normally would be. And I think the questions that came up were, how does something like that get by or happen or
Sure.
whatever? What's your take on that?
Sure. So within that realm, there are business codes and regulations for the different types of businesses that come in. And through that process, there are certain classifications of businesses and buildings or types of materials that they have on site where some of it's regulated, some of it is not. Some people just have to report certain quantities. Some of them, which is generally sometimes your larger businesses, they have to have response plans entirely. And some of those plans they need to do internally, but also share with, the local government and the responders. And hopefully we're doing our side and interacting with them. And obviously not knowing all the details of where that
Nothing's
business
perfect.
was at. Right. I would say, too, it's hard when you don't know what they have in there.
Right.
And, there are inspections that occur, but there are inspections that are regulated for the timing. And again, that becomes the balance of, do we have the personnel and then the funding for those personnel to go out more often? I can tell you, I live in the 15 Mile and Garfield area. It was a scary night, but I will say, as soon as I heard those sirens, coming into the neighborhood, my level at least, just went down. And yes, for me, because of my background, I knew exactly what they were going to start doing
Right.
and how it worked. So that helped. And so, yes, very unfortunate that it happened. But that's why the emergency management and the planning beforehand is so important. So like in this instance, it goes really well on scene, and the responders are protected. They take care of themselves, and then the public, and then they take care of the incident itself.
The supervisor of the township has a lot of responsibility, which you've experienced. You had a lot of responsibility, what you did. Two of the things that come to mind are you have to be the leader and the referee. And there's always a question about bipartisanship and all discussion on the town. Everybody has a right to an opinion.
Sure.
It seems in the last several years, those opinions become more and more vocal, and a little bit of the anxiety comes to the surface a little more often. I think that there's a question as to me personally, when somebody is of a Democratic or Republican Party, and then you have to be the referee, how do you separate that to create a good environment? Because that's basically the board. I mean, it's like saying the president runs the country, but Congress runs the country. Well, the board basically is helping run the township, but the boss, the supervisor, is going to be the referee and try to keep things in good order. How do you feel you're going to address that?
Sure. I think that's one of my strong traits is consensus building. I'm really good at that. I'm really good with relationships with people. And I think, you take the R and the D out of the conversation. There's many boards and committees that I've sat on and I've chaired. There's ones I've presented to, and they're all the same. And we're not looking at whether there's an R or a D, you're looking at the people and you're looking at the mission. And if you share in that mission and that shared goal, which here is for a thriving community, and it can be difficult and people can have differences of opinions. But to me, there's always a solution. So it's getting people to the solution. And that's why, I like the consensus building, compromise. Yes, there are certain times there may be an issue that comes up black and white really clear, based on a law or a regulation, but many times there's not. So I think you do that by getting to know people. And, if you have that shared ending point and value system for what you want to accomplish, I think you can really get there. And I like to be orderly. I'm very organized. People will tease me about that. But I think that helps benefit me as well in what I do.
the township's had several issues come in front of it, and things get done. It's a great place to live. I've been here forever and ever. One of the current issues that we want to touch on here has been the discussion over marijuana stores, and it's gone both sides. You have
Right.
obviously people in favor, people opposed, for any number of reasons, financially, smell, and et cetera. What kind of position would you take on that topic?
So I think the first thing I need to know is what is the up-to-date information and what are the numbers. I'm a very detailed and research-driven person. I like to talk to people about what they know. I like to do my own research, and it's been some time since the topic has come before the township. So I think there's a lot of information to gather. I think the environment in that arena has changed. I think there are more communities around us that have voted that in. So I think there's shops that are accessible. I'm not sure of the revenue numbers, if what they projected back then are what they've projected now. I also know, too, as being a township supervisor, well, yes, you have your personal beliefs that drive you. Sometimes you do have to set that aside and take a neutral position, look at the information. And if you do that and talking to people what's best for the township, and if I understand it correctly, here too, it's a vote of the people. So
Right.
really the decision is not yay or nay to the topic itself. It's about letting it go forward on a ballot. And I really think that's a different mindset too for a supervisor or anybody that sits on the board, because we live in a democracy, and that's part of the process of letting the people decide on large decisions. So I can't say yay or nay exactly, but I think I have a
Good.
really good understanding of what I think is needed at first.
What do you see as the primary needs of the township moving forward?
So I'm going to say my ideas are, I'm going to say somewhat general, depending if they're looking, if you want something more specific, we can go down that road. But I think everyone has a need to live in a good, thriving community. And I think no matter what else you do, public safety's at the top of that list. Because even though we have it now, is how I feel. I love living here. When we moved here right now, we plan this as our forever home. And but whether you have, even if you have good restaurants and great recreation and other amenities to go to, if you don't feel safe in your community, you're not going to go out in your community. We're not going to attract people in. So I think we need to continue and maintain our wonderful public safety aspects, and then continue to broaden those other aspects that want people to be here. Because we want them to be here. We want to keep them here, too, when they're here.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of other little issues that make that happen. So that's why I say kind of general, but that's my mindset where I'm at right now.
So, given the next 4 hours, actually about 2.5 minutes, why should people vote for Vicki to be the next supervisor of Clinton Township?
Well, I believe people should vote for me because, one, I'll start with my experience. I believe I have excellent experience, very well-rounded. I've worked on the ground floor all the way up. I believe I'm mission-driven. I am a servant leader. I love serving others. That I figured out, not right away, right? Like we all don't figure out that was my calling and continues to be my calling. This was not my plan to run for supervisor, yet here I am because I believe in that, and I believe in doing good for others. And I'm growing in my career. I've shifted to be also becoming an advocate. I realized, and in the roles and responsibility I've been given, it wasn't just about actually doing the job. filling out forms or paperwork. It's being that voice for others who don't have that role. And that's really what the supervisor will be as well, is an advocate. And whether it's talking to state leaders or federal leaders or businesses and advocating for the community or our employees and one another. I really have come to enjoy that, and that's quite empowering. It's quite a responsibility,
Sure.
but it's also empowering to be able to do that, and I want to do that. And another aspect just in my career, I know we touched upon emergency management, but I have a tremendous amount of grant experience as well. I know the fiscal side is extremely important where we're at, and I know we always can't use the money that we take in our revenues. So we need to find other resources. And I think my grant management really helps me stand out. I've been writing grants since I was 22. And I've been very successful at that. So I think those are some of the key points, right?
Always need
from
money.
a lot of from a lot of really good sources out there.
Well, on my behalf and those my friends here at Clinton Township Television and Clinton Township in general, first of all, I want to thank you, as I would for anybody that I believe anybody that wants to run for office or public service is it's notable. It's not an easy task in today's world. And secondly, I want to wish you the best. I think you're on a good path, and hopefully it'll all come out the way you want it to.
Yep. No, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it,
Thank you for
Vicki.
the time.
For Meet the Candidates, this is Tom Hakeem.